don't know whether anybody's ever watched the videos of any of my podcasts, but
Where do you post them?
I just put them on YouTube, and then I just have a link from my podcast website. So,
Gotcha.
but yeah, who knows? People could be watching them on YouTube too. I've been watching your YouTube channel.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
Are you getting a good response from it? How long have you been doing it?
The YouTube channels as a real estate agent, a little bit over a year. The first thing I did was I did a video every day for a year. And then after that, I started doing some rapping real estate parody songs.
I like them. I like them.
And now we're the two things I'm doing now. Well, the three things. I'm still doing the rapping parody stuff, but I'm doing a lot of public interviews now and talking to people on the street, asking them questions.
Oh, good.
And doing a lot of real estate investing events and recording those as well and recapping those and putting those out.
So let's start at the beginning, because I noticed I was very remiss when when you said you want to do it. I was like, oh, great. But normally I say, hey, send me a headshot, send me a bio, whatever. So I'm asking intelligent questions, but I don't know anything about you. So please tell me, like, your history, how you came to be on, I find you on Black Diamond,
Yep.
So tell me why you're there, what you're doing, what your life is. Tell me all about you.
My whole life story. So first thing I remember, there were bright lights when I entered the world, right? But I got into real estate a while ago. Firstly as a wholesaler. Because why not, right? You can make some money.
Don't take any money, right? Do it.
Exactly. It was making money. It was flexible schedule, and I felt like, cool, I'm an investor, like that title, etc.
Yep.
So I got into that probably 8 years ago now, right?
Oh, wow.
Almost 8 years ago. And then 5 years into it, I was doing it. I never took it like super seriously. Like I was never like full-time wholesaling. That's my only source of income, but I was definitely doing it. And I realized that there's a lot of deals being left on the table, right? Some houses that you can't wholesale. Like sometimes the people want to buy something after they're moving. And I was thinking, like, I'm not capitalizing on all the income I could make,
right.
But two, I'm not able to fully help. Like, I'm able to help part of the situation, not the whole situation. So I decided that if I got my license, I would be able to help all around. I could help wholesale this, help find a new place, and of course get paid for all the work, but it is more work, right, to do. So
Oh, it is.
So that's when I decided to get my license, and I've been active with my license for almost 3 years now.
Great.
Since then.
And how does that? Oh, so I'm getting. I can hear myself. On your side.
I don't know how to turn it down. If I turn it down, I won't hear you. I don't know.
I know. Let me see if I can turn mine down. If I can. I don't know if I'm hearing. It's like I'm hearing you on mine and coming back and forth. Can you still say something? Let me make sure I can still hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you. I'm going to turn you up a little though. Let's see if that's any better. Well, you said something that I like to hear about helping people, because as a wholesaler, you do get into situations where people are not, in a good place, and you are helping them out of a mess. What was your first wholesale deal?
My first wholesale deal in Connecticut, in Bridgeport, Connecticut. It was a 2-family, and it was it could have, as a realtor now looking back, it could have been a short sale, probably, right? But at the time, I had no idea what a short sale was or how that worked. I just knew that they needed to sell. And my spread wasn't big. To be honest, I would be a horrible wholesale coach because I've never made more than 10K on a wholesale deal. Like, even if it was there, I just never did. Because I don't want to come off like, oh, I'm so like altruistic about it. It's just that I was more lazy, to be honest. It's more like I can get this done quicker if my fee is smaller. And that was my first. So my first one was 2K, right, on a 2-family. And I was like, cool, this is perfect. Like, I just made $2,000. I helped these people get their house sold. And other wholesalers were like, man, you could have made at least, 10 on that or 15. And I'm like, but I didn't have 2K yesterday and I have 2K today.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
and
exactly.
these people are out of this situation, and it's good for me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you
So
done wholesaling too?
I haven't done any wholesaling. No, I haven't. I
Okay.
I
Interesting.
started off, my kind of history, I guess, which we don't need to talk about, but I I buy these places, and this is how I've always done it. I buy these places. I think, oh, I love this house. I'm going to live here forever. I'm going to fix it up to be just exactly how I want. And then when it's done, I'm just like,
Mm,
what's my next project?
yeah.
So I say I'm like a long-term flipper.
Okay.
Just like
Okay. Okay.
buy it, work on it myself, and then sell it. But
Mhm.
recently, I've got into doing Airbnb stuff. So I have a
Mm.
couple places where I do that, and I've done a lot of different kinds of investing, but
Yeah.
I've never done wholesaling. And I think it's because like wholesaling, you kind of have to have, a certain amount of like guts, to like knock on someone's door and say, hey, what's your situation? It looks like you could use
Mhm.
some help, whatever.
Mhm.
And I've always felt very, um, I'm weird about visiting friends people who I know, who I know would be happy to see me. I don't knock on their doors. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, I guess I'm just really weird about, maybe I'm a recluse or something. I don't know.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, I sometimes I want to recluse myself. I mean, look, right? It's a Monday and I'm clearly at home, right? T-shirt and stuff, hanging out. And so yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
Wholesaling is, I mean, technically, you definitely got to have some guts. Go out there to get the leads, right?
yeah,
But I mean, it's you may have wholesaled before without considering wholesaling because really you're just buying at a like helping someone facilitate a deal as a middle person. Like
yeah,
like you let me see if you took on a project like a long-term flip, but halfway through it you decided you want it out, you already found a better project.
yeah,
Technically, it's flipping kind of wholesaling in a way. Depends how you define it. Depends how you define it.
yeah. Well, so how did you get started? I mean, first of all, not everybody knows wholesaling exists. So how did you
Okay.
find out that it was a thing? And then how did you kind of get started?
How did I find out it was a thing? I asked someone actually who was driving a really nice car. So this is actually true story. It was a gas station, and this guy had a really, really nice, like, to be honest, I don't know what the exact make of the car, but it was a Porsche. I know that, and it was
Okay.
really nice, right? And I remember thinking, like, I was probably I just moved to the US at this time, so I was 18 years old. And I walk up to this guy in the gas station, and I'm like, is that? I look around the gas station, and I'm like, who looks like they own this car, right? And I find this one guy, and I'm like, hey, like, you own that car? He's like, yeah. I was like, what do you do, right? And he was like, interesting. Looked at me. He's like, I own this. Not. He's like, I own a bunch of beauty salons. Really? He was like, tanning salons. And he like, what does that have to do with wholesaling? And I'm like, interesting. You want to? And we talk about that for a little bit. And then I ask him, he's like, well, take care, kid. And he's ready to leave. And I was like, wait, hold on. How did you get started though? Because I don't have money to wake up tomorrow and buy a beauty salon, like a tanning
Right,
salon.
right.
I can't afford that. So how did you really start? And he said, oh, I started with real estate. I started with wholesaling. And I'm like, what is wholesaling? And he's like, I would help people. He kind of briefly explained it. He was like, I would find someone who's willing to sell something for less than what it could be worth because
Hmm.
they have some type of situation, they have to do it quickly. So if they're willing to sell it for $50, I mean they're willing to sell it for $50 and it really could be worth 75 if you put $5 worth of work into it. But they don't have time or the money to put the $5 worth of work into it. So they're
Yeah.
willing to sell for 50. Help them find someone who will pay them at least 55 or 60 for it, and you'll make that difference. And I was like, I hear you, but and he was gone. He didn't have any more time to talk. And he left me with that little bit of nugget, figure out what to do from there.
Wow. So what do you read? Do you go to listen to podcasts? How do you kind of get
Hmm.
informed? How did you start getting information?
So definitely typed into Google wholesaling, came up. I had to spell it correctly first, but I got to it eventually. And so I figured out what wholesaling was, it's about finding the leads, right? Zillow wasn't that big, if it was even around at the time. I don't remember exactly. Now I feel like I'm dating myself and getting to that point. Huh? But the figuring out how to get in touch with people, different going to public deeds, figuring out that you can look up probate leads, people who have to sell vacant properties, absentee owners, etc. Figuring that stuff out and just going and learning and figuring out like who actually needs help, who doesn't, learning and learning and meeting with a lot of people. And really, that's really what I started to realize I enjoyed was even if I didn't get a deal, was I enjoyed meeting more and more people and talking and learning about different situations and packing a whole lot of experience into a little bit of time. Because
Yeah.
then the more, um, someone told me this last week actually, good judgment comes from experience and experience comes from bad judgment. And I was like, yeah, right. So I gotta get experience by making bad, what would be considered bad judgment, which is spending time with a lot of unqualified or unmotivated potential clients, like people
Yeah.
that really don't want to sell or are in a need to sell. I had to spend a lot of time with them to
Yeah.
learn, like, okay, what does one who does need my help look like?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. We have a guy in our office who does, I mean, his whole business model is he just, uses Mojo Dialer, calls
Hmm.
random people on the phone. Hi, do you want to sell your house? You want to sell your house? You want to sell your house? But, I listen to him. Like, I just don't see myself ever doing that. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Yep.
just not my business model. But when he gets somebody on the phone, he's so good. He makes sure, like, well, okay, so if I come and sell your house, where are you going to move? What are you going to do?
Hmm.
What's going to happen?
Hmm.
And then when it does seem like they're ready, the stuff he says, he's just got it down,
Yep.
and there's a lot to be said for, just getting yourself to a point where you're just comfortable being uncomfortable. And, you know, I'm going to sit
For
down, like
sure.
you say, I'm going to find out what's the right question to ask so that I know that I'm in the future, I'm not going to spend time with somebody who's not ever going to sell their house, or, who
Mhm.
doesn't need to, isn't qualified, whatever. But
Yeah, 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 for sure. And I really feel like the more from my time as an agent, I've only been an agent for 3 years, but my time as an agent and doing my personal investing, I find that it doesn't really matter what strategy you pick because you can if you get good at it. Like if you just keep doing it, you'll get good at it. And some of them, you sometimes you try something new and it works really well, and then you're like, oh, this must be the best thing ever, and you keep doing it. But then the law of averages like evens it back out, and after a while,
right.
you're like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. But or you start off and it doesn't work, and you quit too early because you see someone else having like earlier success. But like I have friends who are like that who cold call all day long for if they don't do 4 hours a day, they don't feel like they went to work.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking like I don't want to talk to that many people for 4 hours a day on the phone calling. I personally just can't deal with that much rejection. Like that would
Well, you know what? For me, even if everybody I called was delighted to hear from me, I just, 4 hours on the phone, I'm ready to go out and shoot myself. And they're like, "Oh, I'm so glad you called. I really want to give you $50,000 just for calling me today." Like, okay, thanks. Do I have to call somebody else who's going to say the same thing?
you know, that's so true. I mean, that's and then you find what works for you. Like, so I imagine you do probably some. Do you do like letters and stuff? Because I like letters. I'm a big proponent of letters because I can write it one time, copy it, send it out a bunch of times, and I don't have to talk to 1,000 people, but I'm still communicating with a
Right.
thousand people,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more my style. I mean, I like to help people too. I
Mhm.
agree with that. And you do, you see a way that somebody needs something, they don't understand how things work. Like now you could potentially say, hey, we can do a short sale here and you're going to be in a better
Mhm.
situation. And it may be
Mhm.
even better than selling it. I mean,
Exactly.
you still can wholesale it or whatever,
Mhm.
however it works. But, um, they didn't know that they could get out of that crappy situation that they were in.
Yes. Yep.
And you're bringing your expertise to them, and it feels good. It feels
It
good. And
definitely.
that's the whole thing for me. I don't like, I mean, it's great to make money, right? But
Mhm.
you don't want to make money at somebody else's expense.
Exactly. And I feel like, and I mean, this is not a knock on any like people who do it, who make big like commission checks wholesaling. I mean, power to you if you're getting the person out of the situation. But I always feel like I mean, I'll make some money, but there's a reasonable amount, right? If I've seen people make some checks that I'm just like, how did you make $100,000 wholesaling that thing? Like, if you can make $100,000, you could put another 50 in the seller's pocket, and you still would have been okay,
Yeah.
right? Making
Yeah.
like the and as a broker, when you list properties, And of course, there are brokers who also make $100,000 commissions. But in order to make $100,000 commission, you have to be selling something that's worth oodles and oodles of money, right? If you're
Right,
selling Tom Brady's
exactly.
house and you make $100,000 commission, like that's okay. Like that's
Yeah,
totally fine. Tom Brady's gonna be okay when he
yeah,
pays you $100
exactly. He's
commission.
not hurting.
It's not hurting Tom at all. You'd happily pay that if you sell his $40 million house.
Yeah. Well, and you're probably not going to sell that to the first person who walks by the street either. So that's a long-term
Yeah,
commitment. You got a lot of
exactly.
upfront costs, you know, you're not just going to
Exactly.
say, oh, I'll take some pictures with my phone and then I'm going to put these on
Yep.
MLS and somebody's going to come and buy Tom Brady's house. I don't think so.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
So
So,
true.
but
Okay.
I don't know. So now that you're doing both, is that, have you done other kinds of investing now that you're sort of getting to be an expert?
Oh, soda get so I like it. Soda getting. I feel like always a student, but I can be an expert student if that works, right?
Yeah.
Um, yes. The so my parents and I bought we owned a couple multifamilies in Connecticut. We're down to one now.
Yep.
And so I'm like, lessons learned. Love my parents. Don't invest with your parents. Right? It's decision making is hard when you're still their kid. You're
Yeah.
still seen as the young one in the
Right.
dynamic.
Right. Yeah.
So, um, or if you do invest with them, you bring more money to the table so that it's clear that you're in charge of the situation.
Yeah.
Um, so I've done that, and now I'm looking right now, actually looking to start a portfolio in Mass,
Mhm.
more out in Western Mass, like Springfield, Holyoke, Fall River, those type of markets.
Yep.
Looking to start my own portfolio there. I've helped a couple of, as a broker, I've helped a couple of people buy in those areas, and just seeing the numbers. It's kind of interesting being on both sides because I put together the packages for people, and I'm thinking this is a really good deal. As I'm like serving it to them, it's like kind of like having like a nice meal on a platter, and you're bringing it out, and you're like, I want to eat this, but I have to put it on your table so you can eat it,
Yeah.
right? And I think that there's a good balance that you have to find when you're an investor and an agent,
Yeah.
because really good deals you want them, but you're not your fiduciary because you're not signed that long, like you're signed per deal.
Yeah.
But to keep the good relationship, you want to give your clients and your partners a lot of good deals. So
Right.
then you're like, where do I get to invest?
Right.
So for me, I find that that's part of the reason I'm looking out there. And I also started only wholesaling, like now really far, like out of Mass or out of Boston proper at least,
Yeah.
and further out. And I'm starting to look at like Virginia and like Georgia and like
Oh, wow.
like different markets to wholesale, even
Okay.
wholesale virtually, because I don't want to compete with myself, right, and compete with my own options. And of course, when I go on listing presentations, if it makes sense to wholesale the property, I absolutely will.
Yeah.
But I don't intentionally try to wholesale deals when I find them. I look to list them first now,
Yeah.
right, and I'm looking to become more active as a investor who's actually putting the money up. I'm looking at other wholesalers in Massachusetts and saying, bring me your deals. I'll use hard money and buy the deal now.
Yeah. Where did you move from? You said you just moved to the States
Aruba,
when you were about 18. I'm sorry.
Aruba, Aruba.
Aruba? Oh, all right.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
good friend of mine's originally from Aruba.
Nice. And they live in Massachusetts?
Yeah, now until he
Oh, I
until
gotta
he
meet
wants to
them.
go back to a warm place.
Yeah, of course, of course. Tell her I want to go to. I would love to. Yeah, I would love to. I don't meet too many people from Aruba. It's a really small island, 19 miles by 6 miles, right? So not big at all, and we don't. Many of us don't leave. It's a paradise. Like doesn't make sense to
Paradise,
leave.
exactly.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. So why did you leave?
oh man, because one in what, maybe 7 or 6 people in Aruba on vacation are from Boston. So apparently, apparently Boston's a good place to make a living because everyone can afford to go on vacation.
Yeah, that's the
Right?
problem with a lot of paradises. It's hard to become a millionaire when you have
Yes,
such a small footprint to choose from, you know, to
exactly. And it's very you very niche industries, right? You're either going to be in hospitality or you're going to be in a politician, basically. Those are kind of really like the two choices. And or I mean, of course, if you're something specialized, like I have a friend who lives here part time and works in Aruba part time. Literally, he owns. I won't get into what he owns, but he runs a business in Aruba, and
Mhm.
he's there 2 weeks out of the month, 2.5 weeks out of the month, and he's in the U.S. 2 to 2.5 weeks, and he has a partner who they're on rotating schedules like that. Like
Oh,
one of them
fun.
runs the office for 2.5 weeks, then they switch, and then I'm like, So when you go to work, you go to Aruba to work, and then you're in Boston and you don't do anything. I'm like, that's a pretty good setup. It's a
Right?
pretty sweet
Seems a little
gig.
backwards though.
Seems a little bad, but I mean, it can't be that bad if you go there, you work 9 to 5, and then go to the beach
Yeah.
for 2.5 weeks, and then you come back and you don't have to work for 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. Like
It's not
always
bad.
on vacation. Nice.
Exactly.
Do
Yeah.
you have like a long-term goal for yourself, a long-term vision?
Absolutely. So I have a long-term, plenty of long-term goals set out for myself and my family in terms of like invest certain amount of investment properties that we want to own,
Mhm.
certain amount of land we want to own. We own some land. They own some land in the Caribbean. I don't want to make it seem like they've already given it to me, but I've told them make sure they hold on to it because I want it.
They're not gonna
The
live forever, right?
right, exactly. So um, definitely. And then, so my goal is I want to be a really big broker. Like when I first started brokering, I didn't really want to be a broker. I really just wanted to like get it because it was more opportunity.
Yeah.
But now I actually enjoy brokering,
Mhm.
and I enjoy brokering and working with investors as a broker
Yeah.
because I get it, I understand it, and numbers is really something I like talking about. So my long-term goal is I want to run my own big boutique brokerage, if that makes sense. Right. I don't want to have 1,000 agents or 50,000 agents like globally. I want to
Yeah.
have a small army of agents where we do business globally, internationally. Like you want to buy a condo in Aruba on the water, let's do it. You want to buy some investment property down there, let's do it. Like a global reach, but are really a small boutique firm. So
Interesting.
that's going to need a lot of investment properties with good cash flow in order to
Yeah.
sustain that. To get the
Yeah,
startup cost of
absolutely.
that.
Well, I mean, it should
Yeah.
sustain itself, right? At
Yeah, it
some
was just,
point.
I was gonna say it's a startup cost I need. The
Yeah.
startup to open that brokerage will need a lot, but I
Yeah.
want our primary client to be investors,
Mhm.
and basically anyone that sees real estate as an asset. So if you view real estate as an asset and you treat it as such, and then you're the ideal client for us to work with,
Mhm.
because we want to work with people that are making like numbers based decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Use their logic. And that's
Exactly.
a big difference, right? That's the theoretical difference between investors and regular homeowners, right? Is
Hmm.
that one uses logic and the other uses emotion.
Hmm.
Although
Hmm.
you do see a little bit of emotion going into the investment decisions, right? I've seen people try to like tweak the numbers a little bit because
Yep.
they
Yep.
really
Yep.
like
Yep.
something about the property, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's I'm totally guilty of that. Like I can I don't know if, for example, like I went to college in North Andover, and I lived in this apartment in Methuen for a little bit,
Hmm.
and I saw that the house was for sale. It was a 3 family, and I was like, oh, I want to buy that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, the numbers don't make sense. It's zero. It's like there's no reason to buy that besides the fact that you live there for a year and you like emotionally just want to buy that. That makes no
Yeah.
sense. And I actually went to look at it twice, and like looking back, I'm like, why did you look at it twice? You knew exactly where it was. You know what it looked like, but you wanted to try to convince yourself that somehow it could work. And
Exactly.
I think that one of the best ways to avoid that, if you are a like stone cold investor, is like having a team. Because my partner definitely was like, "Yeah, no, that's a stupid investment. We're not doing it," because they have no emotional attachment to it. So
Right.
one of you can
Exactly.
always stay logical most of the time in
Yeah.
situations.
It does definitely help to have a tag team, to have somebody who's, one person's going a little crazy, the other person's going to say, hello, come back
Exactly.
here, come back to
Yep.
reality,
Exactly.
reel you
Yeah.
in. So you have a fellow investor now, a business partner.
So yeah. So right now my team is consists of a contractor, GC, general contractor, a property manager slash project manager, a videographer, and a part-time admin assistant. So
Wow,
we
great.
are, yeah, we're a solid team. We look, and they have, what I like about it, my team is all of us are well versed in investing, understand investing. The contractor's done lots of flips
Yeah.
for other people, couple for themselves. The project manager, her full time job, she builds really big buildings. So we're all
Cool.
like on the same plane. We get it, and I mean, it took a while. I mean, I've been now 3 years, almost 3 years, and it took a while to find the right team because it's important that you guys get along based on your like visions and goals for the future. Because otherwise, you will make decisions based on their goal. You're making a decision based on your goal, and it's kind of like dividing which
Yeah.
route you should go. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's more than just getting along. It's also that you bring different things to the table, that you have different
Sure.
skill sets and different um, personalities, but that
Hmm.
you are also respecting each other and respecting each
Absolutely.
other's differences. You know,
Absolutely.
I think that sometimes the best partner is one that sometimes drives you nuts. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yes.
they're so
Yeah.
conservative. I'm going to kill myself. But it's like, thank God, right, that person's there.
Yep. Yep. One of my partners is definitely like that. Like we have if we have a deal or we're looking at a property, we're like, hey, you know what? The numbers make sense at 500. Two of us will say, yeah, it makes sense at 500. He's and he'll come in like, let's start at 480. And we're just like, but it makes sense at 500. Why insult it? And he's very much like that, but it's good because it definitely keeps us from overspending.
Yeah.
We're at least there because if we left him to his own devices, he probably would never put an offer in because he's just always like, no, it doesn't make sense. It's too high. Like
Yeah,
everything would be too
exactly.
expensive for him. So, but you said something important there too about bringing different skills to the table, and I think that that's huge. And one of the things I found out with our team is that like I got my license basically when I was wholesaling, so that I could bring more things to the table. Because now I'm the guy that can wholesale your property or the guy that can list it for you.
Mhm.
And now that I have the team of contractors and property managers, we're able to help sellers in a, like, look, if you want to sell it, we can list it on MLS. If you want to, so if you need to sell it for less faster, we can buy it or wholesale it.
Yeah.
If you're just stressed and you don't want to manage it, and that's the only reason you're selling it, we got a property management team.
Yeah.
If you need more rent and you need to do the repairs because you can't afford to do it, we'll figure out a way to get. We have the contractor. We can repair it for you. Figure out how you pay this backwards. You take us on as property management at a higher price to get the like. We have a
Yeah.
lot of options now with the team because we all bring something different to the table, which is
Yeah.
something I really like.
Well, you can have them cut you in on an ownership piece too.
Exactly.
Like if the repairs are worth 25,000, say, well, all right, well, we're going to take on them, 10% ownership or something like that,
Yep.
whatever makes sense
Exactly.
for the. I actually talked to somebody one time who, instead of getting commission on big transactions, if it was an option for the investor, that he would become a small partner instead
Hmm.
um, of that. And the other thing that he did is say, I'm going to loan you back my commission and you pay it back over 10 years. And so he liked having that income stream.
Exactly.
So he said, I
Exactly.
put 30 deals, or they're each paying me $100 a month. You know what I mean? That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. That's very smart. I'm familiar with the one about instead of doing the commission, cut me in as part owner on it. But I like the one about I'm gonna loan you my commission back. That's a good one. Right.
Yeah, it's kind of cool,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's worked out really well for him. And
Mhm.
it's,
And that's one of the things. So it's one of the things having both your license and understanding the investment game, right? And I'm noticing there's more and more people starting to do that. I know I definitely wasn't the first one to come up with that idea, but I know there's a lot more people starting to do it. And I'm curious to see, like, in the future, how it shakes out over the next couple of years. I know some states have banned wholesaling or limited the amount of wholesaling you can do to two a year, right?
really, how do they
Yeah.
do that?
How or why?
Well, how,
Oh,
I
what?
guess.
How? However legislation works, they let me. It's in one of those Facebook groups, like wholesaling daily or wholesaling full time. Well, I
Mm,
don't know if you're in those groups because you don't wholesale, but kind of like a Black Diamond group, but national.
yeah.
They're talking about. It's a state in the Midwest, so I looked at it and I was like, oh, this doesn't bother me, but that sucks for those people. But they are now limited to like two wholesale deals a year. But kind of like in Massachusetts, we're limited to 10. You can't if you do more than 10 um, sales of real estate, you have to classify as a real estate dealer if you sell more than 10 and you don't have a license. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that type of ideology they followed, where if you do more than like two transactions as a wholesaler and you don't have a license, like you without a real estate license, you can't do more than two a year. Basically, was it?
So that's interesting because, like, wholesaling to me, I think of it as you're really just being an intermediary. I mean, you're
Mhm.
never actually taking possession of the property. So,
I think what's happening though is a lot of people are learning how to wholesale from online
TV.
people, gurus, etc. and they're not really telling the seller. There's no fiduciary responsibility like we have as real estate agents. So they're not telling the seller, I don't actually intend on buying your property.
Right.
But they're giving the seller that impression. And so that's kind of causing issues. That's one. I know the other issue that's being caused is, you familiar with the double close?
What when you're passed into them right away? What? No, tell me what.
Yeah,
Tell me what that
exactly.
is.
So like when you are saying you're going to close on a property, so you have one company and then someone else is paying you a little bit more than you're offering the seller, and technically you close on the property before you own it, so you get the money in your bank account and then close on the other property. But how can you actually close on a property you don't own yet, right?
You know,
But
yeah.
some states allow it with an attorney. The one attorney kind of handles the whole thing and kind of makes it smooth. But
Well, is it a
there's been
question of like a couple minutes before, or is it like
exactly
days before?
couple
Oh, okay.
seconds, like
Okay.
yeah. So it's like, but and then sometimes they do that so that the seller never sees how much they made on the transaction. So when
Yeah.
they make 100 grand, right, the seller
Yeah.
never knows that they made 100 grand profit.
Yeah.
Whereas I typically always do an assignment where in the contract it says that either I'm going to buy it or one of my assignees, and the seller always will see how much I made on it. And that's why I think that's partially also why I never made big ones, because I was always like, yeah, I don't want the seller to see me making 80 grand on this when, okay, granted, yeah, they made money too, but they're walking away with about the same as I did, and they're the one that owned the house for 20 years.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I just never could wrap my head around making the same amount of money as a person who owned the house for years.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I agree. And I definitely think honesty, you just come in, you say, this is what's going to happen. I've got these
Hmm.
contacts. This is what I'm bringing to the table. Whatever. And I'm planning to sell your house at a profit. And
Yep,
as long as they get what they want and everybody's fair to each other, I just feel
exactly.
like that's a better way to do business. Karma's a bitch. That's
For
what I
sure, for
learned.
sure, for sure, for sure.
I don't
So you
know.
have a lot of properties around here, I'm assuming?
A lot of my stuff is in the White Mountains, actually.
Mm,
The numbers work better there.
I was gonna
And
say
yeah, it's fun, then I can go there, and
that's the
have
real thing. You
vacation or
want to
whatever.
travel.
Yeah, when no one's in there, I can go in and use it myself.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, you can get started with a much lower amount, a much smaller amount of money up there. And both
Hmm.
the first two places I got up there were under $100,000.
See, that's what so I run a group called Boston Young Investor Network, right?
Yeah,
Acronym the buy-in. We call it the buy-in. I know technically there's no U, but in Boston we can pronounce things how we want to, so we call it the
that's right. Well,
buy-in.
BY is buy too.
Exactly, buy-in, right?
Yeah,
So that's one of the things we talk about is, especially if you live in Boston, right? You you make a you can make some good money at a regular salary job in Boston, right?
yeah,
But the cost of living in Boston is high,
yep,
and if you look to try to invest for your first property in Boston, you're like, it's impossible. I can't do it. It's so expensive. But if you look in those Western markets out there, you can find two families for under 100 grand, right?
right,
And it's not quote unquote sexy, right, to say you own in some of those markets, but the numbers work, and that's one of the things that we like emphasize and teach and try to talk to and say, of course we want to get in Boston because it's perfect to buy in Boston. You get the perfect combination of cash flow and equity, value add, and then boom, this perfect hybrid of a property. Like Boston is one of the unique places that gives you that. But if you don't have the money to get in the game, you don't have the money to get in the game. So,
exactly,
and if you don't have the experience, you don't have the experience to raise the money
exactly.
either. So we try to like teach people and show people that we're gonna yeah, go ahead,
Hold on 1 second.
no problem.
Sorry.
No worries.
My boyfriend's leaving the house for the day, so he's saying goodbye.
Gotcha. It's gonna make it interesting on the podcast when they can't see us and they're just like, hold on, wait, dead air.
What happened? No, my editor will take out the dead air, but
Okay.
on the video, I'm not going to edit the video. It's going to stay there. So. But they'll be able to
Gotcha.
see my lips moving, so they'll maybe
Yeah,
understand.
they'll replay it 10 times trying to figure out if their computer was messed up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I can see she's talking. What's going on? So I'm
That's
sorry
funny.
to interrupt you.
No, no worries. So, yeah, we talk about that and like trying to teach and help people understand that you can get, 3, 4 properties out there for 300-400 grand, which still wouldn't even get you a multi in Boston yet, right? But you could own 3, 4 out there, own them for a couple years, put a portfolio together of those, sell that, upgrade to something in Boston,
Yeah.
right? So there's ways to get in the game earlier rather than just saving for 4 or 5 years so that you have enough to buy your first one in Boston. Because that
Right.
now your first one is a huge risk because you're wiping out your savings to
Right.
go for this big project with a lot of undertaking when you could be doing 3, 4 over the next 4 years, smaller ones, put them
Yeah.
together, and it'll take the same amount of time, but you'll be way more experienced by the time you get to the Boston one anyway.
Absolutely. And not only that, you're going to make a profit on your, I mean,
Exactly.
theoretically,
Yep.
it's not, your money's not just sitting there in some stupid 2%, if you're lucky, kind of
Well, yeah.
savings thing or whatever,
Yep. Yep.
or
For
you put it
sure.
in the stock market and you're like, oh gosh, too bad
Yeah. Yeah. Too bad I didn't see that coming.
yeah, I know, right? Too bad I didn't see that coming. Darn it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. No, I am. So are you hoping now you've got your whole team together? Are
Mhm.
they, um, sorry, I got all discombobulated with
Uh-uh.
this.
You're missing your
Yeah.
boyfriend already. That's why.
Yeah. I think I'm okay with that. um, no, I was gonna say, if let's assume that someone listening is not really that familiar with wholesaling and doesn't
Mhm,
totally understand how it all works. When
mhm,
you explain it like as if you're explaining it to a child, like really basics, because I think that a lot of us start at the middle, you know what I mean? We say, how do you get into wholesaling? Well, how about we talk about what it actually is and how it
mhm,
works?
mhm, mhm. Okay. So if I were explaining it to a child, right, I would say, okay, um, you have a puzzle, right? This puzzle has 1,000 pieces to it. Okay, it's in kind of okay condition. It's kind of it's got some stains on it and whatever, a little worn. And on
And
top
there's
of
a
that,
piece missing.
you're missing. I would say you're missing about 10 pieces, right? 10 little pieces. Now that puzzle's worth $100, but because when it's brand new in the box package, but because you've dirtied it up, stained it, and missing 10 pieces, you're not going to get $100 for it.
Yeah.
You need some money right now because you are about to move across the country, right? You're moving. Well, no, you're a child. Sorry, let me back up. You're a child. It's your little brother's birthday, and you need money right now to buy him a gift because last year you didn't get him a gift, and your mom is going to be upset at you if you don't buy your little brother a gift this year. So you need some income. So you're going to sell your puzzle. Now your friend comes over, right? Your friend's name's Lucky. Let's go with Lucky since that's me.
Let's
All
just
right, I
say
come
your friend's
over.
lucky.
Yeah, let's just say your friend's Lucky, and I come over and say, hey, you're like, hey, can you help me sell this puzzle? Or do you know anybody looking to buy this puzzle? And I look at the puzzle. I realize that if it was in good condition, it's worth $100. I'll look up on Amazon or whatever and see like I could replace those puzzle pieces for like $5. And there's a stain remover, this product called Puzzle Stain Remover, and that costs $10. So, all right, $15 plus I got to spend the time wiping it down. And I ask you, well, how much money do you want for it? And you're like, well, all I need is $20. I just got to buy my brother something, and I'm over this puzzle. I don't want it anymore anyway. I say $20 and $20. That's it. Okay. So now I do the math. $20 plus the 15 I need to spend. That's only 35. It's not going to be worth $100 because it's not a brand new one, but it's got to be worth at least 90 or 80, right? So, okay, so if I offer you $20, you'll say yes. Now I just got to find someone that'll give me like $40 because I'll tell them, hey, look, you can buy this for 40, spend $15 on it, and it'll be worth $90, right? So now I find another kid, an older kid who's willing to buy that puzzle, someone who's a reclusive probably, who wants to spend time wiping stuff down on their own and like not talking to people, right? Someone who's okay with that, I find them and they'll say, yeah, I'll pay you $40 for that. So the double close is I take the $40 and I say, oh, yep, give me the money. I'll bring you the puzzle tomorrow. I go over to my friend and I say, here's $20. You need it, right? Can I have the puzzle? They say, sure. And I take it. I give the puzzle to the person who gave me the $40 and I put $20 in my pocket because I'm a wholesaler and I just made $20.
And you
So
never actually owned the puzzle. You were
Never
just the
actually owned the puzzle.
intermediary, brought the
Yep,
parties
just
together.
intermediary.
Yeah.
Yes. Because in real estate, I wouldn't actually pick up the house and bring it. It would be more papers. So I never would actually own it. But yes, in theory, because even when I carried the puzzle, I technically never owned it. The person
Yeah.
already gave me money for it. I was just transporting it to them.
Yeah.
Right. It was in my possession, but I never owned it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That was an excellent description. Thank you very much. You should take that
Thank
out and
you.
do a blog about it, like, hey,
Yeah. Full blog, the puzzle,
let me explain
puzzle
this
steps
to
to
you.
wholesaling.
So now how did you get to what made you decide to do like rap and real estate stuff?
Oh, that's a great question. Besides, trying to be different and like super out there, um, there's a lot of things that contributed to it. One, I I can rap, right? I'm no like 50 Cent or Jay-Z, but I can rap, right? And so I actually used to be in a rap group when I was younger, like probably most young kids who kind of have some flow, try it out at some point. And so when I started, I was like, okay, I like marketing. I could get myself out there. But then when I really got into it was because I wanted to share some of the information that I knew that some people didn't have access to,
Hmm.
right? And I realized that there are a lot of, like me when I was younger, I had a little bit of ambition and hunger. So it kind of like drove me. Like I had the balls to walk up to someone with a nice car and say, what do you do? You clearly make money. Like, tell me how you make this money. I know
Right.
a lot of people might not do that. That's kind of awkward, kind of weird, right? But I did. And I said, what if I didn't have that? How would I get this information? Like I wouldn't have got it because what was I doing? I was listening to rap music, playing video games, like playing sports. So I said, how can I get this information to someone who wants it, but isn't going to go up to that person and ask them for it? And I said, if I put it in a rap song and make it entertaining, maybe they'll pay attention to that and listen
Yeah.
to it. So I started rapping about different topics, rent control, how to build equity in properties. There's a song I have coming out about how to flip. It's called The Recipe to Flipping, right? It's done to the remix to Ignition by R. Kelly. So not that I like what it happened, I just like the song. Just but so that's what kind of made me start. And then some people responded positive to it. They're like, "These are hilarious. They're so funny. They're this and that."
Yeah.
And then I was like, I should just keep doing this. Like, it's not a very common thing. Some real estate agents have made some rap songs, like, but I was like, I should really just keep doing it because I enjoy it. One, that's first and
Right.
foremost, I have fun doing it,
Yeah.
and second, it's a great differentiating factor, right? People pay attention to it, so
Excellent. Yeah, I thought it was great. I watched a couple of them and it actually sparked a conversation this morning. Um, you know, uh, I live across the street from the beach, so every morning I go and walk the beach. So this morning, um, my boyfriend came with me and we had a big conversation about, gentrification and what does it all mean? And, is it good or bad? And, it
mhm.
just sparked this. And it was because of your song, because I was saying, oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
really looking forward to talking to this guy today. He's really cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
actually was just invited to speak on a panel to a bunch of middle schoolers
Oh,
about
yeah.
different topics, and they brought up the song and they wanted to talk about gentrification and is it good? Same exact way. Is it good? Is it bad? How do you do this? How do you do that? And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the answer for everyone, but I look at it and I say gentrification is just a thing. It's not like good or bad. A hammer is just a thing. It's just a something that happens. What's bad is when one group of people is forced to move out, right, or constantly move because they can't afford to be somewhere, or because rules change, or etc.
Right.
And my hope and my thought and my belief is that if you live in a neighborhood for generations on generations, right, like you feel like this is your neighborhood,
Yeah.
but you don't actually own it on paper,
Right.
right? Then it can be gentrified. It will be gentrified. Every neighborhood's going to be gentrified because gentrified just means like increasing it from this class to this class. That's always going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But what you don't want to happen is you don't want displacement to happen. You don't want, as this happens, the people who've been there can't afford to stay there,
Right.
right? So in order for that not to happen, you need to get ownership mentality, right?
That's it.
Because
Exactly.
I live in JP right now,
Yeah.
and one JP is gentrifying for sure, right? Jamaica
Yeah.
Plain, Boston.
Yeah.
However, there's a lot of parts in Jamaica Plain that are not getting displaced because there
Right.
are a lot of people that actually do own here who've been here for a while, and they're like, I'm not selling. I don't care if
Exactly.
you put like these new businesses around that this and that. Like I'm staying here, and if
Yeah.
I do move, you're gonna pay what my house is worth. You're not gonna lowball
Exactly.
me and just get me out of here.
Exactly.
So
And that's it. You don't, I had this, I actually was attacked by someone, just verbally, obviously,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
um,
I was like, "You're
who,
looking good. You probably took care of them."
yeah, you got that right. But, yeah, I'm in this investment club, and they're all over the country. And this one woman said, when she found out I was from Boston, she was like, oh, Boston is like, you're getting rid of all the people who are interesting, who make the
Yeah.
city give it its heart and soul and everything,
Mhm.
and blah 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 blah. I said, just the renters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The people who own in these neighborhoods, because she was originally, she had grown up in Dorchester, and she's
Yep.
like, oh, Dorchester's being destroyed and blah 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 blah. And blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. I'm like, I know people who own property in Dorchester, and they are happy. They are really
Mhm. Yeah.
happy. Like,
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
that same friend of mine, who's originally from the Caribbean, he owns like 5 properties there, and he's just like,
Mhm.
dude, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah.
He's watching his properties double and triple in value. That's a
Mhm.
good thing for him.
Yep.
I mean, is he now going to be able to rent to people who have more money? Yeah, and that raises the value of his property as well. So, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I definitely am against the whole, when communities just become sort of generic, right? They've got every
Mhm.
stupid chain store, and every, the mom and pop shops go, and there's just all this
Yeah.
crap around, and it looks like any other town you could be in. That I don't like. You want to be able
Mhm.
to maintain that soul, the thing that made anybody want to live there in the first place,
Exactly. Yep.
but in order to do that, like you say, people they have to own it. You got to
Mhm.
own it.
Mhm.
That's how you can control your destiny, is that you buy it.
Exactly. Exactly. If you own it, like, and that's so true. If you if all and this is not a knock on people who can't afford to live there at all, because that's a not a whole nother conversation. I actually hate that saying. That's an important conversation adjacent to this one that needs to happen,
Yeah.
is about how the access or the pathway to home ownership, the availability of it. However, if if the renters were homeowners, like you said, they would love gentrification, right? Because it increases their net worth, right, as it goes up. However, if you're not a homeowner, it's annoying because you got to pay more rent. And if
Exactly.
you, right, so the other thing that I talk about and rap about in some songs is about, and what the buy-in group is also about, is about teaching how you can get access to home ownership. Because even in certain areas, like a lot of people, this is just off the top of my head, I'm thinking about this one right now. I know it's not Boston, but Lawrence, Massachusetts, for example, they will help you buy a house, multifamily, single family, with no money down and horrible credit. And it's a process. It takes a little bit of time. I think it's NACA that does it,
Yeah.
but it's like you can have like below 600 credit score and still be putting no money down and still get into a home. Like they are, and if you don't know about that, you just think, oh, it's too expensive to live. I can't live here, right?
Yeah.
People, it's just incredible. But there are opportunities and
Right.
ways to become a homeowner. You just, like you said earlier in the beginning, and something people talk about a lot, is get comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Step out of your comfort zone, look at different things. And just because you've always rented doesn't mean you need to rent forever.
Right.
And I'm not against renting at all. Like my personal goal right now, I'm not looking to buy something in Boston right now, right? I'm looking to buy properties like outside of Boston that cash flow really well. And
Yeah.
I'm looking to keep renting in Boston, because where I want to live is, I want to live top floor penthouse, like full amenity building. So I'm not going to buy a $15 million condo next year, but I can rent one maybe, right? And I'm
Right.
okay with that. I will pay
Yeah.
the rent to be there because that's what I want, but the rent will be paid for by the cash flowing properties
Right.
in the less sexy neighborhoods that I buy in. So,
You bring up a good point that I think holds a lot of people back, and that's credit score. I mean, if you're
mhm,
not intentional about having a good credit score, you probably don't have one. You know what I mean? If you're not looking at it, if you're not finding if there's wrong things on there, if you got, I see people that come in, and the stuff that's holding them back, that's giving them lousy credit, is a Verizon bill from 10 years ago that they just never got around to paying. It's just like, take control of your stuff. It's being intentional. It's
yeah,
just, this is what I want, and I know I'm going to get it. What do I need to do? What are the steps I need to take in order to get
hmm
there?
hmm
And
for sure.
unfortunately, I see that a lot in the same communities that are being put out of, I have to leave because I have, I'm getting priced out of this neighborhood.
hmm
Well, when you moved here,
Yeah.
you could have bought at that time,
Yep.
right? And your
Yes.
property would have tripled in value and you'd be in a whole nother place, but you
Hmm.
couldn't because you just didn't have your mindset in the right place. You weren't thinking, okay, what steps do I need to take? Oh, I need to pay this $53 Verizon bill. I need to, right? I mean, and that's just
Absolutely.
education.
And that's the thing. And I mean, maybe 40, 50 years ago, there was a lack of access to this education. And even now, there's definitely a difference in school systems between different urban communities and suburban communities on how like good the school systems are. There's definitely differences, but
Yeah, but no
we
school
all have
system's going to
access.
teach you how to be a real estate investor.
Exactly. Right? That's not the information you're going to get. And we all have access to the internet right now. So it's, if you, all you have to do, like I said, I got the nugget of, I started wholesaling. And that's all it took for me to go up and go down the rabbit hole of what is wholesaling.
Right.
And that leads to me starting wholesaling. That leads to me and my family having a discussion and us buying a multifamily. And that leads to me being a real estate agent now. And like, but having the drive and to say like, all right, I'm going to look up this stuff. Like, even if you just go on to Google, honestly, and you just type in like how to be rich, like
Yeah,
it's just start with the most basic
exactly.
question. It's going to lead you to real estate. It's going
Yeah.
to lead you to real estate, and then you're going to follow that rabbit hole, and then you're going to start asking questions like, how do I buy a house? How do I buy this? And that's kind of why I made a video a day every day in that 1 year when I first started, and it's 365 videos about the most basic, generic things like how to make a good offer, how to buy a house, like can you buy a house on Section 8? Like
Yeah.
you can.
Yeah.
Like that's
You
literally
can.
actually a
There's
thing.
programs, there's special
Yep.
programs.
Yep. So
Absolutely.
it is absolutely possible. And I think that that's how, I mean, for me, that's how gentrification, that's one step in the direction of solving gentrification
Yeah.
is getting the information. Well, not, let me work the back, not solving gentrification, solving the ramifications of gentrification, like
Yeah.
displacement,
The
because
negative
gentrification,
ramifications, the
yeah,
displacement of people and the boringness of creating a boring
the
community because all the
boringness.
good
Yeah.
people all the people with anything interesting to say got kicked
Mhm.
out.
Yep. Yep. For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
funny.
last year, Wells Fargo was giving away $20,000
With the
grants.
Lyft program. Yeah.
Yep. All you had to
Yep.
do is stay in the house 5 years. That's it. And you get the money. You don't have to pay it back. I couldn't give that money away.
Yep.
I mean, people just couldn't. I don't know. They couldn't find a place, or they couldn't just get themselves
As
motivated.
you were trying to help people broker into those, like as a broker, you're trying to help people buy with that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's
Yep.
just like, and they said to me, oh, we're going to have this, whatever it is. Um, they're like their day when everybody comes in and learns about the program and you have to get registered and all that kind of stuff. We're going to
Hmm.
have that day. We limit it to X number of people, but we guarantee you that at least 60% of that money won't get claimed.
Mm. Hmm. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And that, so I remember that program too. And I was looking to get some people on it as well. And what it's so fascinating that how much fear controls people because in the conversations I had with potential clients, 5 years, what if I want to move in 3 years? Right? Then I owe that money. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what if you don't move and you just keep paying rent like for the next couple of years? Like what? That was what held some of them back. And
Yeah.
talking, like I did my best to talk them off the ledge and explain to them. And I got some of them to apply. And the deadline actually, like, it took so long to convince them that uh, what if 5 years from now they want to move? Let's cross that bridge when we get there first. Second of
Yeah.
all, like it's okay. You sell the house, cool. Like you'll be all right. It's better.
Yeah.
You're still in a better situation than if you rent for the next 5 years, right?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. I know
Yeah.
it's a shame. It's really a shame. I just you want to like shake people like come on, just but everybody's different, right? If they weren't,
Yes.
then there wouldn't be any opportunity for any people like us.
Yes. That's true. No, that's very true. And that's the I think that's my so as an agent and an investor, you see both sides, right? You see like I want to help my clients get the best deal when they're buying investment properties, which means pay the lowest price.
Yeah.
But then if I'm on the other side and I'm helping the person like from a wholesale position or as an, I'm like, wow, we got to get you the highest price. Like, can't like, and I feel like, wow, like, so I'm like, am I a hypocrite? No, I'm not a hypocrite. I'm just helping both sides. Like I have these internal conversations and struggles with myself about it too. Right. And like, I've talked to people, I've helped people make decisions to sell properties when I'm working for the person buying it at a price that I'm thinking like they could make another 50 grand here, another 20 grand,
Yeah.
but I'm signed to the guy buying it, to the guy or girl who's buying it.
Right.
So and I'm just thinking like, I wish you had the information to know that you could bump your price up by 20 grand. This person would still make a profit
Right.
and you guys could be good.
Yeah.
So, but that fear that I was talking about is there like for all of us. Like, I'm sure there are things you get scared of doing, like when you buy your first investment property and put X amount of dollars down and you're like, okay, my money is out there, like my money's working. I'm kind of nervous. What if it doesn't work? Like, you have fear, I have fear, but the ability to actually just face that fear is what I feel like holds a lot of people back from a lot of things in life, but specifically when we're talking about real estate and owning, whether that fear of like, oh, what if I feel like a lot of people think the biggest thing I hear about people who have a lack of education about real estate is they're afraid that to buy because they don't know where they're going to be in 5 years. And for some reason in their brain, that automatically equates to, if I move, I have to sell this property and I don't want to
Right.
buy
And
it
you
just to
don't.
sell in 3 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I know. That's it. You don't have to sell it. You just,
Mhm.
own something else, I don't know.
And then it's, I don't want to be a landlord because my uncle told me one time he owned a property and the toilet broke. And I'm like, yeah, that happens. The toilet might break at 2 a.m., right?
Yeah.
There's a
It
thing
probably
called
will
property
happen. You
management.
know what? I know.
Yep.
I know. I remember a conversation I had with this girl. She had been in that situation. Her grandfather had owned a bunch of property, like 3 or 4 units, and he wasn't the kind of guy to like force people to pay. So he's paying all this mortgage, and the people aren't paying their rent, and blah 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 blah
Yep.
blah. I'm like, so does that mean you have to do the same thing? You can't hire a property manager? You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
come on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
But it's also what you're afraid of. I
yeah.
used to, before I ever did real estate or anything, I used to own an import company, and so I would
What?
try. I'm sorry,
Oh, what company?
an import.
Oh,
I
import.
used to
Got it.
import stuff from overseas.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
so I would basically travel the world, different places, and buy stuff and whatever. And people say, "Oh, aren't you afraid to travel alone and
Mhm.
do all this stuff?" I'm like, you know what? I'm more afraid to like wake up in my bed at 95 years old and think I didn't do a friggin' thing my whole life.
Yep.
That is my fear. That
Yep.
I'm a FOMO. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
I'm way
Yep.
more afraid of missing out on something than I
Yep.
am about doing it. So I guess that's where we differ, right? That's where
That
where you and I are different from a lot of the planet.
exactly. Like, that is a very, very good point to bring up. Like, what are you afraid of? Because I'm afraid of that. Like, looking back at life and being like, oh, I regret this.
Yeah,
But what's funny? A lot of people are also that way, but they're that way about different things.
yeah,
Like, the same person might say, "Oh, don't get that tattoo there. What about when you're 80? You're gonna look back and regret that tattoo." But they won't buy a property, right? Knowing that, hey, if I don't take this chance, I might look back when I'm 80 and regret that I didn't take the chance. So
right.
they already have that framework. They just apply it in
The
like
opposite way.
the wrong ways. I'm like, who cares about this tattoo? I'm like, at 80, and like at 80, I might think it's a stupid tattoo, but guess what? I'm also 80. Like, I don't care that I have this. I can do what I want. Like at 80, if I have a stupid tattoo on my arm, like, so what?
Right.
Right?
People don't like it. You know what?
I'll
Yeah,
say
look
something that an
away,
80-year-old
right?
can get away with.
It's funny. I took a lot of grief from people. I don't even know if you can tell on the TV, but I let my hair go gray. And that was
Uh-huh.
like a big deal for people. People like, oh, I can't believe, you're going to let it grow and it's gray and, it makes you look older. When I said,
Oh
I am
no.
older. What the hell? You don't like it? Look away. I mean, I really
Yep.
can't be bothered with this color in my hair every 5 minutes. It's like,
Mhm.
it's okay. It's okay
For
if I look
sure.
older.
Exactly. Exactly. Give me one quick second. Let me just shoot one. Um, I All right. Yeah, that is huge, huge, and a good book, honestly, about the topic of fear. Since we talked about it so much, um, have you ever read? You know who Robert Greene is? 48 Laws of Power. Artist.
No.
That book? Okay,
Mm.
so Robert Greene is an author. He wrote his popular books of 48 Laws of Power, Art of Seduction, Mastery. Those are like some of his popular books.
Yep.
But he co-wrote a book with the rapper 50 Cent, the rapper, the entrepreneur. I gotta intentionally stop calling him a rapper because he's way more than just a rapper. He's an entrepreneur, TV producer, film producer, actor, um, record label owner. So Curtis Jackson and Robert Greene co-wrote the book called The 50th Law, and it's all about the concept of fear. And they talk a lot about 50 Cent's upbringing and how he had to learn to not show fear in the environment he was growing up in, and he couldn't be as scared of small things, right? And when he's dealing with life-threatening situations at an early age, that really molded him into a really good businessman because he's not afraid of little risk. Like, who cares if he gets cleaned out for $10 million? Like, he's like, I could have died when I was 12, right? When like gang violence or something. Like, I'm not worried about this. I'll take the chance and I'll do it. And it's
Yeah.
not to say like you got to be reckless, right? You definitely still, are calculated and stuff. But when the numbers make sense, take the chance. Like, if you have a shot, you have a shot of winning. You can't take the shot. Like, you gotta, it comes down to like setting your threshold. If I have a very high risk threshold, if I look at it and it says 51% chance of being successful, 49% of failure, there's not even a question. Like, I'm doing it. Like, it could say like 40% chance of success. I might still do it, right? I might still give it a shot.
Well, because
Where
you
other
know that you're
people,
not the average citizen, right? You know that you're above average. You know that you've got a better chance of making it work.
I believe I'm like the bird, the fat bird on a small branch. I don't trust a branch to hold me up. I know that I can fly if the branch breaks, right?
Yeah.
So that's my threshold. But if you're more like risk averse, then set your threshold at 80%, but always figure out how to make things quantitative so you can put it on paper and not go on your gut feeling. You can put it on paper, make the numbers make sense.
Right.
And if it's above your threshold, then do it. If it's below your threshold, then don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I've recently learned that when it comes to stock investing, like I was a complete failure with investing in stocks because I did that. Like I didn't know how to do it. So I was just like, oh, this looks good. This looks good. I
I
didn't.
like the color of their logo.
Yeah,
Well,
you know what I did? I used to have this alphabet portfolio that where all the stocks that only had one letter in their name that I would just buy them. Like that is just so stupid. And it's not like I was so wealthy that I just couldn't figure out how to get rid of my money fast enough. I was just like a poor, not that
yeah,
pretty poor person. Buying these stocks just willy nilly. And in recent years, I've joined this stock investment club and learned about analyzing stocks. And you look at it and you look at the facts and you see the information. You say, well, yes, I started off this journey because I liked the company, but
yeah,
now it looks like it's actually a good stock to own. Okay. Or it isn't a good stock to own. We
yeah,
did the Tesla analysis.
yeah.
You can make money in a week by owning Tesla, but are you going to, make money in the long term?
It depends on Elon Musk. That company hinges a lot on just one person.
Exactly. He gets hit by a car. It's all done,
Yeah, yeah.
Forget
You
it.
smoke some weed on Joe Rogan podcast, you lose 10 grand.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's the same kind of thing. Like you say, you set your parameters and then you stick with them. You don't say, oh, I like the color of their logo. I'm going to go down this road. No, you you decide what your parameters are beforehand. So
Yeah,
you can't adjust the parameters to fit what you want to happen. And then you just
exactly.
trust the process, right?
Mhm. And then and then I think the hardest part is like we mentioned earlier, like you try something, it doesn't work, you quit because it's not working, or you try something, have some success, think it's a great idea, like you make money in a week in Tesla, but then is it really like a long-term, strong, solid strategy?
Yeah.
I think one of the things is too, when you set those parameters, before you change the parameters, change what you're doing to funnel things into those parameters. So if your parameters are like really stringent for investment properties and you're like, man, none of these properties work, change your lead source, right? If you're going on MLS looking for good deals, for example, you're not finding good deals that fit your profit margin, then stop going on MLS. Before you change your parameters, try to do cold calling, try to do mailers, get deals from wholesale, like try to different lead sources or different whatever you're using to funnel it in there before you change. Because when you made the parameters, you most likely sat down, really thought it through, looked at what made sense for you on the back end. And if you're building backwards, it makes sense to keep like this, what your end goal is. So then the next step, that's the right next step. If it's not working, you got to change what's coming in here. Like these are the variables, not
Right.
not your parameters and not your goal. Keep
Yeah.
those like as a permanent. Yeah.
Yeah. The goal
I
is
think that's
fixed.
what a lot of people. Yeah, I think a lot of people do that. Like they set their goals, set the parameters, if they get to the perimeter point, right? They at least set their goals. Doesn't work. Okay, maybe change my goal, right? And it's like, no, your goal is fine. Like, keep your goal,
Yeah.
change your, like, start step by step, get the parameters that work, and then change what you're doing and on the other end.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I've noticed in interviewing people for the podcast
Hmm.
is that a lot of them, almost none of them were successful right out of the gate with whatever they chose to do. So
Yeah.
many of them like, oh, I tried this thing and I lost my shirt. And, instead of saying, well, I guess I'm just no real estate investor, they said, I
Hmm.
got to figure out how I can, what did I miss? Like, let me learn from this experience instead of just saying, forget it, I can't do it.
Hmm.
Um, the guy in this week's podcast, the one that just went on live last night, um, he tried, first of all, he started in 2008 and he put in like 50 or 60 offers. They all got rejected. So it's like, now would you
Hmm.
even like, who would even get to 50 offers, right? You're
Yeah.
just gonna
Yeah.
say, oh
That's
man,
exactly.
forget it. And then once he finally got a property and he lost his shirt on that, he said, and he didn't say, oh man, this is definitely, the universe is telling me something. I just should not be a
Hmm.
real estate investor. No, instead, he invests money to take the fortune builders class. And he just kept pushing it and pushing it, pushing it until he succeeded. I mean,
Hmm.
because it depends on so many different things, but it's persistence. This is Napoleon
Yeah.
Hill talking.
Yes. Yes. Napoleon. And I mean, you can look at it. Some people look at it like, that's a sign for me to not do it. Like you said, the universe talking to me, and yeah, you can interpret it that way. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know what signs look like. The language the universe speaks to you is different than the language it speaks to me,
Yeah.
right? However, I know I look at situations like that and I see, okay, this was really hard to do, and I'm still not succeeding at it, and I'm giving it a lot of my time and energy and like focus, and I'm still not succeeding. I said sometimes that excites me because not just because I'm weird and like the competitiveness of it, but um, it also excites me because I'm like, this is a high barrier to entry. Like, I'm putting in this much work to it, and I still can't figure this out yet. Please, when I figure it out, it's gonna take people a lot of time to like catch up to me and like go, and they're gonna need to be strong-willed. Of course, there'll be some people that come by and get lucky and figure it out on their first try,
Yeah.
but it's gonna take a lot. So that means that's good. When I do get here, it's gonna be rewarding, right? Just like for internally, but it's gonna be rewarding because I'm not gonna have as much competition because a lot of people aren't gonna make it to this side because
Yeah.
it's hard to do. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an excellent way to look at it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Like, all right, if I just can break this thing and
Yep.
like you say, go back and say, all right, what can I do to make it easier? What can I do to do it better? Once you have your first success, you can say, oh, okay, now I
Hmm.
see how I could have done this differently. And then you just, you knock it out of the park the next time.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it's not just I'm just going to keep, oh, I can't remember where I heard this, but, I think it's the audiobook I was listening to talking about, how you incent people and how you get different results. So they
Hmm.
had these, it was Russian oil well drillers. They were doing like oil exploration and they paid the people by how many like feet of drilling they did. So the guys just went and drilled a whole bunch of like 1 foot holes. Because that was what was it. They just went along and they get, paid great money because they were drilling all this footage, whatever,
Yep.
but they didn't ever actually find any oil because they weren't drilling one big deep
Big.
hole.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep. That's hilarious. That's
it's
hilarious.
just kind of like, okay, let me think about this. I'm putting out a lot less effort now, but the one hole I'm drilling is,
Hmm.
giving
Hmm.
me something back. But
Yeah. And that's very true. I do like I have a mastermind group with a couple of like millennials, um and no, we don't call it the millennial mastermind. I know that name's taken by someone else, right? But we get together, we talk about different things. We're all in different industries, but that's one of the things we talk about too, is like where you're putting the effort and focus, right? Because you have the skill set. We all have skill sets, we all have abilities to do things, and we may be doing a lot of work that keeps us busy, right? And using our skill set on something that's not bringing back the ROI, like, yeah, like you said, like, okay, you drilled 10,000 feet, 10,000 feet of footage or whatever, however you
Yeah.
say that,
Yeah.
versus in 10,000 different holes versus one hole 10,000 feet deep.
Right.
And that one hole might not even get 10,000 feet deep, because if you put all the energy there, it's harder in resistance, etc. And you might only be getting to like 4,000 feet. But that's what oil is, maybe, right? I don't know
Exactly.
how deep oil is, right? I don't, but
Thanks. I don't
4,000,
either. I don't know
right?
anything about exploration, but we get the analogy.
Yep, yep. So and I think that when I talk to like in this group, there's educators, artists, bunch of different people, and when I talk to them, sometimes for them it's real like eye opening. Wow, I've been spending my time with this skill set solely on customer service of the two clients I have, right? But that same skill set could be used to like attract new clients, but they don't consider themselves a salesperson, and they don't realize like it's all you gotta do is just tweak it a little bit. Like you don't have to go out and start selling. Hey, it's $10,000 for my art. But the same conversation is the same way you build relationships with the two clients you have. You could start new relationships and keep doing that, and kind of like just tweaking, showing them how they can tweak their effort is huge. And then for me, what I find really helpful from them, to me, is how they go through their creative processes, because sometimes I might have drilled a 4,000 foot hole and I'm like, there's no oil here. What the heck? Like, oh my God. And then they teach me how to be creative and say, why don't you drill a little bit to the left right now? You're 4,000 feet deep. Instead of keep going straight down, just drill a little to the left. You'll only have to go 30 feet and you'll hit the oil. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, you're right. Like, cause I'm so like
Right. Think
down
about it
one
a
thing.
different way.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
there's not like a right or a wrong. It's a good mix of the two. And if you don't have the ability to mix the two on your own, I say, like I said, back to like teamwork, right? And if maybe the person not necessarily a partner or like actual team member, but at least like a group of people chatting and getting out there talking to people, start your own. I think it's genius that you have your own podcast. I actually want my own podcast too, solely for the reason that I want to talk to more people who I can learn something from. Right? I think it's
Exactly.
genius. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and that's it. If I just said, "Hi, would you like me? Will you let me ask you questions for an hour?" People are like, "What are you nuts? You're not even going to buy me lunch, But but they'll do a podcast,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
get to ask the questions I want to hear the answers to, and also hopefully somebody else cares about that as well. But
Exactly.
it's all about me.
Exactly. Exactly.
About
It's
my
as it
goals.
should be. Exactly. So like there are enough people, no matter how like unique and individual, we're all unique and stuff, but there are enough people that care about some of the things we care about, right? No one's a carbon copy of you and cares about everything you care about. And out of all the questions you ask me, somebody only cares about 4 or 5. The person cares about 12 of them, but they'll all listen to the podcast because of that and get some value out of it. So
Yeah.
it's good. It's smart.
So thank you very much.
Mhm.
Do you have like a bio you can send me that I can, because I'm going to do an intro to the
Mhm.
thing afterwards, and I
Yep.
can
Yep. Yep.
say, hey,
Yeah.
J
How
Lucky.
much time? How much time do I have to get you the bio? I have
A
a
couple
bio, but
weeks. I
yeah.
mean,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
let's say a
Yeah.
week, just to
Yeah,
give it a
that's fine.
deadline.
I'll have it in a couple of days. I just thought
Uh,
I was like, I hope she doesn't need it like the next hour and she's posting it at like 5 o'clock or something.
No, 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 no. I decided not to do it live because I like having, consistent like intro and outro music, and I
There you
like
go.
to like everything we talked about, all the Robert Greene's book and all the other stuff that we talked about in the podcast. There'll be links to that.
Mhm.
Do you have a link to your buy-in group? Is that like a website or anything?
Yeah, yeah, it's an Eventbrite group. I can put a link. I'll get that.
Perfect.
And we talked about the rent control video. I can get you. Well, you can get a link to that. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I'm
Excellent.
gonna definitely put links to your YouTube channel and stuff like that on
Thank
there
you.
for sure. And then if you want your I don't know if you have a real estate page for like with KW or whatever, but
Yeah, the like a website, actual website or Facebook
yeah,
page, or what do you mean?
yeah,
Um,
whatever you want, anything you want me to link to, just let me know.
okay, yeah.
And that'll all be on
This
there.
this part of the video is not going to be posted, right? Like this part right here, or no? Maybe,
Well,
yeah. Okay, it
so
doesn't
let me
matter,
stop the
right?
recording. Sorry, let me do
Yeah, yeah.
that.
No, it doesn't matter.